tough. Can everyone hear me in the front? Okay. I'm Jay Givers. I'm the director of Hillel, the Jewish Student Center at the University of Georgia. And I have an announcement first that someone just gave me, and I want to make a couple of thank yous. Campus ministry clergy out here and other guests. A couple of thank yous for tonight. I'd like to thank Temple Beth Jacob of Atlanta, MS Hamak Shamim, which is the College Youth Programming Division of Hadassah, and Jay Starkman, our videographer right here, for helping both financially and with programmatic support to bring Rabbi Spivak down from New York. I'd also like to thank, for my own personal consultation, the help put this program together and make it a nice evening, Rabbi Gerald Freeman, who's the director of the University of Florida Hillel, Rabbi Ronald Gerson of Congregation Children of Israel here in Athens, Nancy Greenfield from the National Center for Hillel, David Abramowitz from the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Council for Jewish Federations in New York, and Reverend William Matthews of the Methodist Center on campus, and my colleagues of the Campus Ministry Association for advice and counsel helping to put together this program. Also, personally, I'd like to thank Rebecca Greenwald for all of her patience and persistence. Rebecca is the student leader for Hamak Shamim, and she's worked months trying to put together this program and was the main instrument for bringing Rabbi Spivak into town. And also Renette Bloom, student president of Hillel, for all the work for publicity and getting the flyers out and talking to everybody. Just for your information, this program was mostly intended to be targeted at for Jewish students of the university, but there'll be a lot of information exchange. So if some things seem not quite accurate to you, remember the target audience is mostly Jewish college students, but there'll be lots of information for everyone. And also Rabbi Spivak has informed me that there's going to be plenty of time for questions and also for personal discussion with Rabbi Spivak and Rabbi Gerson, etc. afterwards. So, don't feel stressed out for time. There'll be plenty of time to stay as long as we need to talk afterwards. And please, everyone's invited to stay for the reception afterwards. Now I'd like to introduce Rebecca Greenwald, and she has a few comments. Thank you.
On behalf of Hamak Shamim and Hillel, I'd like to welcome you all here tonight. I appreciate you coming. For several years now, we as the Jewish community have been faced with what something we deem as a severe threat to our existence. That's something being a cult on our campus, which targets young Jews in order to confuse them about their religion, and in the meantime, confusing people of other religions as well. Members of that cult are sitting amongst you in the audience tonight. In order to combat this problem, we've asked a professional who deals with these cults, Rabbi Yaakov Spivak, to come to UJ to speak, and he's graciously accepted. Rabbi Spivak is the International Director for MS, which is the Educational Media Exposition Society. It is known worldwide for his efforts in protecting Jewish youth from missionaries and cults. Our program tonight will deal with that problem. There will be a question and answer period following Rabbi Spivak's presentation, so please save your questions until then. So please help me in welcoming Rabbi Spivak, who came all the way from New York to be here.
I want to thank Rebecca and Jay for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. As I look out at this audience of probably more than 100 people, I think of you as college students, as members of the community, but more than that, I think of you as, unfortunately, targets. Targets through the media, personal targets. There are millions upon millions of dollars being spent to influence you, to brainwash you, to go after your mind. And I want to talk about it this evening because brainwashing today can take the form of any kind of media. Wars are fought on CNN. Wars are fought for your mind. And you are the future of a world that's just far different than that of a few decades ago. As college students, you are required to take psychology and sociology courses. In the beginning of my talk, I want to let you know that you're going to see some slides that are the result of many years of study of MS. We went to a group of young kids in the second and third grade, and we must have interviewed hundreds of them, and we showed them pictures of a man with children, and then we asked this man, these children, what do you think of this man? And they all said, he seems like a nice guy, like my uncle, like someone I know, and I feel good, and I have warm feelings about him. Now, we are going to ask you to turn the lights out, and if we can, turn on the slide projector, so that we'll show you exactly what we showed them. Slide projector. And all the people that support us. And I say this in front of people who are here who are obviously stand for the opposite of what we stand for. That Jews will not allow themselves and their children to be brainwashed. The feelings that I've expressed here are expressed by many, many people all over this country, and in England and other countries. And the more you pressure us, the more you will have a response. And the more response you have, the more you will decide that it is not worth your time or effort, and it will be unproductive, to say the least. There has been much progress made by many groups. The Catholic Church has come out with Nostra Aetate. Other groups have come out so that Jews can live with Christians happily in a mutually respectful way. And that's the only way the world can survive. That is the only way the world can survive. And if you want to bring us back to the pogroms in the day when the Jew was called a killer, if you want to try to convince the world of that, you are going to have a struggle on your hands that you will be sorry and regret that you began. We're going to have to live together in this world. We can't have the hatreds that we had in the past. We cannot have the religious intolerance that we had in the past. We know what people do who believe that they have the only answer. There's a fellow in Iraq who feels that he has the only answer. And everyone who doesn't believe as he is an infidel. He will be taken care of. We've got to live in a world of mutual respect. And we are not going to let you bring it down on us. That's this portion. Thank you very much.
In order to best facilitate the question and answer period, we ask that if you have a question or something to say, you raise your hand and Rabbi Spivak will recognize you. You come up to the microphone so everyone can hear your question. And please limit it to 2 questions per person so everyone can have some time to speak.
All right, please come up.
Yeah, right.
You want to turn that on, please?
I understand there are some basic differences between Judaism and Jews for Jesus. I would please ask you to underline some of those differences.
The differences between Judaism and Jews for Jesus, I cannot speak for all of Jews for Jesus and what they believe on Monday and what they change to believe on Tuesday. But we have documents. I can tell you what Judaism believes. Judaism believes that there is respect for all mankind. We don't believe we have a lock on the world to come. The philosopher Maimonides, the Rambam, says that Hasidei Umot Olam Yesh Lahem Chilek Le'olam Haba. It means the righteous Gentiles of this world have a portion in the world to come. You don't have to be Jewish appreciate or to have heaven, the world to come. The ticket in there is not what you believe as much as how you act towards your fellow human being. The elements of certain elements in Christianity today, not general Christianity, but certain elements say that you must accept Jesus as a Messiah, or else you are not going to be led into paradise, into heaven. You are a sinner. That is unacceptable to Jews, and it's unacceptable in this life and in the 20th century. That's the basic difference. Any other questions? Yes.
Of course, I'd be speaking for the other side. The other side, hopefully, not meaning against, Jewish people as you seem to perceive it, but against what you're saying as far as how to put it. Well, let me go ahead and frame the question. If I'm a Christian, which I am, and I am to follow the teachings of Christ, if I am to adhere to what you're saying, I would have to compromise what the teachings of Christ would be, and therefore negate my being a Christian. You understand? I mean, I'm not saying well, but you understand basically
Okay.
where I'm coming from?
I understand where you're coming from, but the United Church of Christ is not coming from where you're coming from. You ever heard of the United Church of Christ? There are scholars, I guess some of them may be equal to your ability, I don't know. The United Church of Christ has said it voted in its 1987 governing synod to officially affirm the continuing effectiveness of God's covenant with Jews, along with his extended adoption of others through the Christian Messiah. What they are saying is they are disagreeing with you. They are saying that you do not have to be to follow the teachings of Christianity. Do not exclude Jews if they don't accept Jesus. So what you are saying may have been valid 300 years ago when they threw Jews into pogroms and cut their throats. It's not valid today.
Okay, my second question was a lot of two questions.
Yeah.
The United Church of Christ and other organizations, mainline denominations, there are wings of Christianity. Some of them have gone liberal and have absolute, it's just like Reformed Judaism versus Orthodox Judaism, and don't adhere to the teachings of Jesus. In order to adhere to the teachings of Jesus, I have to hear his words, which say, I am the way, the truth, the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. That's not me being exclusive. That's Jesus being exclusive.
I see. So you feel that you were able to interpret the scholarly teachings of Jesus better than the scholars of the United Church of Christ.
I believe there are other scholars who interpret.
Well, when you're ready to list them for me, but I think that you're pointing out what I'm talking about. You feel you have a lock on the truth. You feel that anybody who doesn't agree with you is a wing, he's a radical, he's a wild man, he's a liberal, That's not so, my friend. People realize they can't live like that anymore. Welcome to the 20th century, and I hope you'll live with us in peace. Thank you. Yes.
I would just like to say that the second question that the young man asked, I respect what he said totally. My question is, why do you feel compelled to take what you believe in, what you follow, and shove it down a Jewish person's throat? Now, I'm not addressing the question to you. I'm addressing it to him, and that's not what you asked to do. I would like to ask you, what responses do you get to this? It's one thing to believe. I believe the way I believe, and if I come up to you and I say, if you don't believe the way I believe, you're going to burn in hell. I mean, somehow I can't relate to this.
Well, let me reply to your question a little bit. Christianity is ever evolving. It's an ever evolving religion. Of course, Protestantism was founded by Martin Luther. And I'm sure that the gentleman that spoke before and others here believe that Martin Luther was a great man. There's no question about it. But people sometimes speak and they sometimes make mistakes. In the beginning, Martin Luther wanted, those of you who are theology majors or history majors, was very warm to the Jews. He painted himself a picture as a very fine, nice friend of the Jews who was going to convert them. He was going to give them those little yellow buttons. He was going to give them the papers if they weren't forgiven on Yom Kippur, and going to do all those nice things. Okay. And when he saw that these Jews were a stubborn people and they wouldn't accept it, this is what the founder of Protestantism said. It's a matter of public record. Said Martin Luther about the Jews, quote, "Set their synagogues on fire, and whatever does not burn up should be covered or spread over with dirt, so that no one may be ever able to see a cinder or stone of it. Their homes should be likewise broken down and destroyed. They should be deprived of their prayer books and Talmud. Their rabbis must be forbidden to teach under the threat of death." That is why we say, thank God, Christianity has evolved from the position that you just heard. Any other questions?
I have another.
Yes.
I have two questions. My second question, Rabbi, is if indeed, this again I'm addressing from your experience, if indeed there is such love and caring for the Jewish soul to want to save it at any cost, why is it that the time to save it has become the moment that Jewish child walks out of their door and is no longer protected by their family or the friends that they've grown up with, but rather they're in a vulnerable position where they might be easily swayed to believe whatever.
Well, you make an excellent point. I want to say this about that. When I came to speak at SUNY Albany on Erev Yom Kippur, on the eve of Yom Kippur, and Baruch Jacobson, as he called himself, of Jews for Jesus, was there. When I came in, Baruch, he ran away. He didn't want to deal with it. I give a lot of credit to the people who asked questions tonight, who challenged me in whatever way, that at least they came to discuss this, because we're going to have to discuss this. There's an old theory in the Navy that when your ship capsizes, you should stay with the group around together. Don't go off on the side, because those who are isolated, the sharks tend to go after those who are isolated. I stand by my analogy. That is why in times like this, in places like this, they'll go after Jews in old age homes. They'll go after kids on the street. They won't challenge intellectually anyone who comes here to do it. And when you're in college and when you're away from home, most of you in high school, if you're from out of town, most of you in high school know that you had friends and you had a structured society that you built up over 17 years. When you come here to the University of Georgia, to the University of Wisconsin, or to UCLA, or to the University of Florida, you're suddenly thrust into a new world, into a world that's different, into a world that you have strangers, and you are isolated from the structures and the warm family that you had. And that is why you are targets here, because if you're isolated, maybe you won't fight back. That is the answer to your question. Yes, we have some questions in the back. Yes, sir. Please come forward.
All right, I've got a point and a question. So I'm allotted two questions. Can I make the first one my point?
Sure. Make it a point to do that.
Okay. All right, I'm Jewish and I don't accept Jesus Christ as the Messiah. But my point is that I guess I kind of understand. If I felt like if I knew some Christian people and I was under the impression, mistaken though it may be, that they would burn in hell and have devils rip at their flesh, if they didn't convert to Judaism, I might go out of my way to try and convert them. And while they certainly get on my nerves, I don't feel good about condemning them for that, or bringing up pogroms or the Holocaust, when these people, at least they seem to be trying to help me.
Okay.
Okay. But here's my question, and you'll get to answer.
Let me react to your point.
You'll get to react to my question. I just want to ask the question real quick. So my question is, clue me in, because I really don't know anything about what Jews for Jesus do. And you call them a cult. I'd like to know honestly, what do they do that's that bad? Like, what do they do? Do they beat their people and all?
Fine. Well, What you're telling me, your point is that you said, well, if they believe that I'm going to burn in hell, I can understand why they want to try to convert me. What you're telling me is that you're magnanimous in your toleration of bigotry. To me, that's unacceptable. Someone want to translate that for him? Okay. Okay. When you say that someone is an infidel because he doesn't believe like you, because he has no right to worship in private the way he wants, and he's going to burn in hell, you're a bigot. And that is why Jews were killed in the pogroms and in the Crusades. That is why Jews, on the same day that Christopher Columbus set sail in August of 1492, that Ferdinand and Isabella expelled the Jews under Torquemada, and we have a letter from Christopher Columbus apologizing to Ferdinand and Isabella for not being able to leave the harbor because the Jews that they had just expelled were blocking the harbor. No, I don't tolerate such bigotry. I think toleration of bigotry that would harm other people is a vice. And I will not be understanding about those who want to destroy me because of the fact that I unfortunately don't see the world as they do. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to say that I am a believer in the Messiah, and I'm just learning what you quoted from Martin Luther about the Crusades and all of the horrible, horrible things that have been done to the Jewish people in the so-called name of Christianity. And I agree with you, but there's just no excuse for it. And as much as I can, I apologize for it because I am a Christian and I think it's terrible. And I was talking to a Jewish rabbi who I respect very much that taught me that Jesus was a Jew, the first church was Jewish, and so on. And he said that in the Torah, it teaches that all men are sinners, and that God said in Leviticus that the only atonement for sin is the blood.
First of all, the Torah doesn't say that, all right? I can tell you as a rabbi that has an ordination that only 3% of all rabbis have, take my word for it, the Torah doesn't say that. That is one of the basic differences of ancient Christianity and Judaism. Ancient Christianity says that because of the sin of the Garden of Eden, we were all born sinners. Judaism says when you come into this world, you got a clean slate, buddy, so make the best of it. There's a big difference between Judaism and ancient Christianity. Secondly, this blood atonement that you're talking about is an atonement of animal atonement. We do not believe in human blood to atone for anybody or anything. And in my circles, and the rabbis that taught me, who were the great teachers of Lithuania, such a thought, with all due respect, is absolutely blasphemous.
What about Leviticus 17:11, where it says blood is given for the atonement of your souls?
The blood there, referenced there, and in many other cases, talking about animal blood, all right? And the animal was used for the sustenance of the Levites and the priests. You've been taught an incorrect way. If you're telling me that that's what Christianity believes, Christianity has a right to believe anything it wants. If you're telling me that's what Judaism believes, that's not what
Rabbi said that the Torah and the ceremony.
Can you quote me the passage in Hebrew?
Leviticus 17:11.
No, that's in English, man. Can you quote me the passage in Hebrew?
That the blood is not in Hebrew. I speak Hebrew.
Well, then I'll tell you what. I'll give you my card. You go learn it in Hebrew, and have studied it with a scholar telling me that, and can show it to me. Then I'll listen. But right now, it's not academic. You have to know what you're telling me. I'm not going to base my life on something that's hearsay and secondary or third, written in Hebrew, and you can't say it. I respect your right to speak, but I can't intellectually. If you were to give that kind of an argument in a class in the University of Georgia, if any of these students would stand up in their class and say, well, I studied this in English translation and not in French, and therefore I'm ready to have a BA in French literature when I have it translated, ask the students what their professors would do to them. I'm sorry, it's not intellectually respected, that particular point of view.
I did read the Tanakh that was translated in English.
Well, the translation, you have to read the original. That's the college. All the scholars and the professors in the school tell you that you cannot base your lifestyle or belief or call yourself an expert or knowledgeable unless you go to the original. Thank you. Yes?
Okay, I'm Christian, and I just wanted to make a comment. I do love and respect.
Torah is divided generally into the Talmud and the codes, more specifically into the 5 books of Moses, more specifically into the 10 Commandments, more specifically into the belief in one God, and most specifically into the teachings of Hillel, Ma desane aloch lechavroch lo savi, which means, do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. If you don't want a certain philosophy forced on you, don't do it to others. That's the basis, says Hillel, and the rest is commentary.
My second question. I was born a Jew. I went to yeshiva for 6 years. I've accepted Yeshua as my Messiah. Why wouldn't I be classified as a Jew? And I accept the Torah and its teachings, the Gemara, the Midrash, the Tanakh, and I know Hebrew. And I'd like to know, in your opinion, why I wouldn't be classified as a Jew.
Shades of a discussion. What yeshiva did you go to?
Yeshiva, Spring Valley, New York. Rabbi Greenbaum was the principal.
How far did you go there?
6 years.
To what grade?
6th.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You made a rabbinical decision based on 6 years of education up to the 6th grade. If you were a brain surgeon and you said you were qualified to operate on me because you had a 6th grade education, do you think I would be wise in accepting you to putting my head in your hands?
No. But you haven't answered my question.
I have answered your question.
The
fact that you had 6 years of education does not make you a scholar to make heavy decisions. However, are you still a Jew? We have a concept that a Jew has Yisrael, Afal Pisha Chota Yisrael. A Jew that even though he may have strayed from the teachings of his ancestors, even though he goes, steps over the line to something which is not Jewish and which is something that goes against the basic teachings of his people, he is still a Jew. Yes, you are still a Jew. Welcome back anytime you want to come. Yes.
Okay. As this lady pointed out, she said that Jesus was Jewish, and if it's the Christian Messiah or Savior, I don't know what they say, but either or, if they say that it's their Savior, why are most Christians and people that believe that Jesus is their Savior, why are they so against Jews? Does that make sense?
Why are they so against Jews?
Or why are they anti-Semitic? I don't know if you can answer that one, I was just curious.
Well, if I understand your question correctly, why are certain people who believe in Christianity, which is supposed to be a religion of love and understanding, why do they hate Jews? Why are they anti-Semitic? Let me give you some quotes from the New Testament that I think you should know. Quotes that have been reinterpreted by many, many people. The roots of Christian anti-Semitism may be found in the New Testament itself, which all too often portrays the Jews as children of the devil, John 8:44, murderers of the righteous, Matthew 23:34-35, Acts 7:52, under a curse, Galatians 3:10, and displeasing to both God and man, 1 Thessalonians 2:15. Now, thank God there are enlightened Christians who have rejected these teachings as going against the Jewish people. Thank God that the Christian community has said that these statements are not to be taken as hatred against Jews. Thank God that the Pope in Nostra Aetate said that we cannot hold Jews responsible for being killers. So therefore, you just bring out my point. If there are those who want to say that Jews are sinners, they will find precedent in the New Testament. But the precedent has been rejected by the more enlightened of Christians. We don't want, we can't afford, and we don't need Bible-thumping Saddam Husseins. And that is why, thank goodness, the majority of the Christian establishment has removed those concepts from the teaching of Christianity. We don't want them brought back. Yes, sir.
Rabbi, I was just wondering, I'm confused by what your organization's main intent is. What is it, Missionaries MS? I'm confused by...
MS and Missionaries are two different organizations.
Well, MS, what exactly is your intent with the Jews for Jesus?
My intent is to bring Judaism back to traditional Judaism. My intent is to make sure that Jews are educated, that they can read an aleph from a base, that they know the enjoyment and the pleasure of their ancestors in the studying of the Torah, that they can find out who they are, where they came from, and the great heritage that life has to offer them. I don't speak against anyone. I speak for Judaism. The only reason that I unfortunately have to discuss this is that my teachings and my philosophy and my religion, which I want to pass on to the next generation, is being blocked, is being polluted by people who want to throw us back to the 19th century.
So are you saying that their beliefs are not as legitimate as ours?
I am saying that I respect the fact that Christians have the right to the world to come, that if they don't accept Jewish doctrine, that doesn't mean they're denied entrance into heaven. I don't pass judgment on their beliefs. All I ask is leave me and my people alone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm kind of having a problem with this. I'm confused in some of the way because I've always grown up that I respect everyone. As you said, a good person is someone who respects or accepts people. And granted, I don't condone what they do. I am an observant Jew. I care about my religion. I care about myself. Being a young adult or a student far away from home on this campus, what can we as young adults do? What should we do? Should we do anything? I've never come across a problem with it. I've never come across it at all. And I'm just wondering what we can do.
The greatest thing that you can do is to study your heritage, is to study the Torah, study Judaism, and study it on a level of college level. Unfortunately, even if you study Judaism up to the 6th grade, you don't get the essence. You're looking at the eyes of a 6th grader. We had someone in here who said he went to the Yeshiva Spring Valley, and that he is converted, he's accepted a belief in Christianity. And I told you that 6 years of education doesn't make you a rabbi or a brain surgeon. I'm saying the strongest thing you can do is to be a beacon of the study of Torah for your own people. Respect the right of Christians to believe what they want. Spread the light of Torah. Spread the ideals of Judaism to your fellow Jews. When they feel down because of madmen in Iraq is after them, or because some certain crazies in the Soviet Union are trying to kill them, or because when others are trying to convince them to leave their religion, you be strong. The byword, the password of MS, and I end every one of my articles with this chazak, be strong. Be there for your fellow Jews. Kol Yisrael Arev Zeh B'Zeh. Every Jew is responsible for every other Jew. If I could have been invited down to the University of Georgia to study with you a passage of the Bible, to study with you a passage of the Talmud, I would have cast everything out that I said tonight. I would have said, who needs to talk about hatred between people? Who needs to push off people from these kinds of things? Wouldn't it be wonderful if they invited me down just so I can share with my fellow Jews the Torah that my parents taught me, and that my rabbis taught me, and that hopefully they will learn and teach their children. But there are obstacles in the way of that, and that's why I have to come down somewhat in a combative position to do this. That's not my purpose. You want to spread Judaism, study Torah. Every time you pass a Jewish book, open it. Realize there's so much more to learn. Realize that what you learn in the 6th grade, even though you went to yeshiva, is no comparison with the abilities you have now, the cognitive abilities to learn and to study and to appreciate Judaism. That's what I would love to come down for one day. Now what I'm doing is the defensive. one day maybe we can get together and share Torah and study the beauty of Judaism. That's what I'm all about. Hopefully that's what MS is about. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Rebecca, I don't know how much time you want to give me on this. Another 10 minutes. Okay, I'm trying to be fair in calling on people. I hope I've been fair. Yes, sir. Why don't you come up to the microphone? In a free society, you want everybody to be heard.
I'm a little concerned that just about the whole evening you tried to tie in all the atrocities that have been committed against Jewish people, and for one, I'm appalled. I'm a little concerned that you try to tie all those into the teachings of Jesus, and I don't see how you could do that, or try to associate a true Christian following the teachings of Jesus would ever support something like that against a Muslim, a Jewish person, another Christian. Or I'm a little concerned that you try to tie all that together, almost kind of a brainwashing of sorts, the very thing that you're trying to counter. Also, as a Christian growing up, I never met anyone anti-Semitic. Of course, I didn't grow up in the South. I understand there's a lot of...
You grew up in a vacuum.
That's possible, too. But I never encountered, with all the Christian people I knew, I never encountered anyone that was anti-Semitic.
I have no reply to that. I don't think anything I can say. If you've never seen anti-Semitism in the world and you don't watch the news,
no, I see,
and you don't read the history books...
Well, I fight it wherever I can. As a matter of fact, I would spill my own blood before I ever saw gas chambers or anything like that again. And I want you to know that.
Well,
and I'm not trying to be combative with you. What I'm trying to say, though, is that there's nothing in the teachings of Jesus that you could show that could produce gas chambers for anybody.
I don't appreciate
you trying to
I think that Jesus was an Orthodox rabbi. And I'll tell you, if you walked on the face of the earth today, the first place he wouldn't go would be a church. He'd walk into my shul and I'd welcome him as a Jew. But the difference is that I have a list of people who claim to be his followers throughout the years, and they're about this thick, about 300 quotes from them, all claiming to be ministers of Jesus, who said some nasty things about my people. I don't believe that that's what he taught either. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. When you have people telling Jews that they're going to burn in hell if they don't accept Jesus, that is bringing it back to those things. And that appalls me too. If you're not, let me ask you a question. Do you believe that a Jew has a right to believe in what he believes in, and that even if he doesn't accept Jesus, he is going to be allowed into heaven? Do you believe that?
I do not know for sure. Definitely, I just know what Jesus has taught.
And what is that? And what is that?
And I believe that Jesus said that he's the only way, and that no one comes unto the Father but through him. But I also believe that Jesus...
Let me reply to that. I asked you what you said, and what you believe, and you told me. So you're telling me that there's only one way for a person to save himself. And only one way, and that's not my way. And then you wish to lecture me about bigotry. Okay.
No, I'm not lecturing you about bigotry at all. I'm just trying to inform you that as a Christian, that I'm not anti-Semitic.
I don't believe you are.
Okay? And that I love you, and I love everyone here. And
so let's try to get along. Let's try to get along without warning each other of our impending doom because of our philosophy.
I agree. As a matter of fact, I've never approached a Jewish individual and told them that they have to accept the Messiah.
And I promise you, I will never approach you. Try to. Thank you. Okay. Rebecca, why don't you make this fair and pick out some people, because I may have biases, subconscious biases. Anybody pick out the people that you want, all right? Maybe you know some people who may. Yes, ma'am. Well, let's get this lady in and you'll be next, ma'am, okay? I promise. Yes.
First of all, I'm a Messianic Jew. I was born to Jewish parents. And you were talking about brainwashing. Well, nobody brainwashed me when I was in a time in my life when I was really searching to know God. And I went out on my own, went out and bought the New Testament. And I started to really come to know God and have a more desire to know my Old Testament. And through it all, I've become more Jewish. I have a desire to really reach Jewish people, because I do have a love for them. And my question is, how can you explain all these events going on with all these Jews coming to know Yeshua as their Lord? I mean, Messianic congregations are building up
they're in Israel. How can you explain that?
No, don't sit down, let's talk. May I ask your first name?
Irene.
Irene. Did you have any Jewish education at all?
No, my brothers have. I do study the Old Testament, though. I go to Bible college.
So, you know, Irene, I really believe that a person like you is sensitive to the way you talk, to the beautiful teachings of the Bible and its spirituality. And I get the feeling just from hearing you that you're a very spiritual person. And I only hope that you give the tradition of your own people a chance. I really do.
I do. I love my Jewish tradition.
Study it. Give it a chance. Learn Hebrew.
I have.
Go to a rabbi, ask him to teach you Hebrew, to teach you to study about the rabbis and what they taught, and you'll find it to be very, very sweet. It would be foolish of me to make any broad brush statements to you right now. I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards to find out more. I think that I see a very special, sensitive person to things that others may not be. And God bless you, and let's talk further. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not good at this, but I don't have the education. I have 100% Russian Jewish background.
You have a pardon?
I have 100% Russian Jewish background on all sides. I grew up in the world, in wildness. I grew up with absolutely no desire and no interest for my Jewish heritage, nothing, except that I always knew that God existed, even though nobody shared that with me. And then when I was miserable, about 5 years ago, I cried out to God, and I realized then, and I still do now because I see the problem in Christianity and everything else, that if you let your preferences get in the way, if you let your own thinking get in the way, God's ways aren't man's ways, and it will get in the way of the truth. But when I cried out to God and said, God, there's millions of things I could believe out there. I want to know the truth. I don't care what it is, I want the truth. He led me to Christianity. And once I was led to Christianity, the God of Israel gave me a desire for my heritage, because the God of the Bible is a God that still loves the Jewish people. He's going to make covenant with them, and he's drawing them to them. Now, one thing I want to say...
I'll let you talk. The only thing I ask is that the English major in the audience would like you to put a couple of periods between those commas and sentences, okay?
Yeah,
All right, so let's get a 4 sentence, put a period to it, and then you
I have a question, and I want to finish a statement that I think is very important. I have found, as I examine and watch people that believe in Yeshua, people that believe in Jesus, that the God of Israel is beginning to move in such a way that has shown many of them that the things that happened in the past, the persecution of the Jewish people, was very wrong, to the point where they are crying out, and they know that they're in debt to the Jewish people.
But you're embracing a philosophy that was part and parcel of that persecution, my dear.
No.
When you think about it, you said you give God did you really give God a chance to talk, or did you decide what he had to say to you? Give him a chance. I'm not going to try to change you or convince you other ways. I'm going to tell you, if you come from Russian Jewish background, there was a situation in Russia where Jews were not allowed to live as Jews, and under people who professed the certain fundamentalist philosophies that you are espousing now, Jews were murdered, millions of them. So all I'm saying to you, and I think we've given you a sufficient amount of time, I'll be happy to talk to you later, is give God a chance to really talk to you. Study. I'm not here to convince you. I can't convert people like this. I don't want to. But in this period of time, when you're under a collegiate atmosphere, an atmosphere of learning, don't come to conclusions before you've given God a chance to put his feet. I thank you. I've got
a question for you. First of all, with all of the prophecies, the Jewish prophets in the Torah, specific prophecies about the place of his birth and everything that he went to in the New Covenant in Jeremiah that was expected, are you still looking for the Messiah? That's my question.
Am I looking for the Messiah? I look for him every day. I believe in a perfect belief. I say every day with my talents and filling. that the coming of the Messiah. And even though he may tarry, I know he will arrive one day. And you know when he will arrive? He will arrive when the prophecies of the Bible are come true. It says they will beat their swords into plowshares. In Iraq, they're beating their swords into plowshares right now. Did they beat their swords into plowshares throughout history when millions of people died more in the name of religion than for any other political cause? I believe that one day the Prince of Peace will arrive and he will bring peace. Up to now there has been no peace. Thank you. All right, can we have, yes, sir.
I just recently learned that there's two Old Testaments. There's the Old Testament that I grew up with. I'm Jewish. And on a recent flight back from California, I sat next to someone who started quoting the New Testament. And so I said, can you show me that in the Old Testament? They were looking at the King James Version of the New Testament. And they pulled out of their bag the King James Version of the Old Testament. So I think it's important to point out here that there is the Old Testament. And that's the Old Testament. Anything else it may not be the New Testament, but it's not the Old Testament. And if you're studying this other Old Testament that's written by somebody, I don't know when was King James written?
King James Version was translated about 15th century.
So if you're reading something written in the 15th century that was written, it's not the Old Testament. And I think it's real important for people to know that. I had no idea when I heard other people talk about the Old Testament, be they Jewish or not Jewish, that they could have possibly been talking about anything other than the Old Testament that I was familiar with. So I think it's important to know that. The other thing is there was a comment about from someone that they never felt anti-Semitism and that they weren't Jewish. No one can feel what someone else feels unless they are eligible to feel that. I can be called, if I like blacks, I could be called a nigger lover, and I'm not saying I call blacks that, I'm just saying, and I can sympathize with them, and I can be beaten to death right beside them, but I would still not know what it feels like to be that black man being beat to death. So for the people who are not Jewish, that have never felt anti-Semitism, I can tell you that you never will.
One comment on what the speaker said about the Old Testament and New Testament, and that is that not only is there only one Old Testament according to what Jewish people, we don't even accept the term Old Testament in the sense that Old Testament means there was a bunch of old rules, and now there's a New Testament which all the rules are new. Before there was no designated hitter, now we have a designated hitter, so all the old rule books are thrown out. We don't accept that concept. We accept the concept that there was one testament to us, nothing was revised, it remains the same. Rebecca, how much time are we going to give me? One more question. All right, who hasn't spoken? I'll take one comment from this young lady right here. Yeah, have you spoken yet? Okay.
I have only one question, and that's to explain Jews for Jesus. Are they Jewish? Are they Christian? What are they?
Okay. Are you Jewish?
Yes, definitely.
The way I interpret Jews for Jesus is the following. I have respect for Jews, and I have respect for the man of Nazareth and his teachings for peace in the world. I think they are fine. I think people who believe, Jews who accept the concept of Jews for Jesus is like saying kosher pork. I respect pork and I respect kosher, but they just don't go together, man. I thank you very, very much for everything. I want to conclude by saying the following. One little story, maybe, from the Chafetz Chaim. A very interesting story. In the middle of the pogroms, during the time of when the Jews were being killed because of their beliefs, and there was tremendous anti-Semitism in Europe, One of the great teachers, Rabbi Israel Meir Kagan, was asked by his students, there's a tremendous spirit of anti-Semitism in today, and we have to take a coach through the forest, and the driver is not Jewish. How do we know we can trust the driver? And you know what this Orthodox rabbi replied? He said, ask the driver to go by the church, and if he stands up and genuflects, crosses himself in front of the church, then you know you can go with him. Because even though I am Jewish and some of you may not be, I believe that you have to believe in something. And a person who respects and understands true Judaism and true Christianity understands thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not force. And so I'm not here to emphasize that which makes us different. I'm here to emphasize, bring back that which makes us the same, part of the Judeo-Christian heritage. I respect the right of Christianity to believe what it believes, and I hope and pray that the day will come that every Christian will respect the right of the Jew to believe what he believes. Chazak. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Rabbi Spivak again for coming. He made a very long trip to be out here and certainly appreciate it. A common misconception on this campus is that we don't have a problem with Jews for Jesus. They are there. They're there 3 times a week at the Tate Center, going under a different name, of course. This is a problem. You need to be aware of it, and your friends need to be aware of it. The way to combat this, we haven't exactly figured out yet. If you have any questions regarding the Jews for Jesus, you can speak to the rabbis in town, you can speak to Jay, you can speak to anyone who knows something about the Torah. Following this, we'll have a reception. You can speak to Rabbi Spivak and anyone else who you thought was interested to speak to from their questions. So please stay for the reception, and thank you for coming.